Hey guys, today I will be taking a look at the best case scenarios for both President Donald Trump and former Vice President Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential election, and I just want to take a look at the best case scenarios that both candidates can expect to see on election night. Now, this does not mean that Joe Biden is going to win Wyoming or President Trump's going to win California. These are just the most reasonable best case scenarios I can see happening for either candidate on election night. So first, I'm going to start off with Biden's best case scenario and finish off this video taking a look at the best case scenario for President Trump. For Joe Biden, of course, I'm still going to first fill in the solid Democratic states, these being the states of Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii, the state of Vermont, Massachusetts, Rhode Island, Connecticut, New Jersey, Delaware, Maryland, the District of Columbia, the state of New York, as well as the state of Illinois, giving Joe Biden 182 electoral votes. These are all states that I think Joe Biden will be able to carry by over 15%, as well as the 1st District of Maine, putting Joe Biden up at 183 electoral votes. For President Trump, I think that the states of Idaho, Wyoming, North and South Dakota, as well as the state of Oklahoma, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, and West Virginia are going to be the only solid GOP states. This makes up 53 electoral votes, smaller than the electoral votes from the state of California alone. Now, of course, in Biden's best case scenario, some other pretty solid GOP states typically would not be as close. The 1st and 3rd District of Nebraska, however, are going to be solid states. So this does put Donald Trump up at 55 electoral votes to Joe Biden leading with 183 electoral votes. He needs less than 100 electoral votes now to reach 270. Next, I'm going to fill in the likely Trump states. These are states that I would normally consider to be likely or even solid states. Some of the solid states that I would typically consider to be are now likely states. These are the states of Arkansas, Louisiana, and Mississippi. I think that in Biden's best case scenario, where if he were to win by a pretty large and substantial margin, I think these 3 states would become likely states and not vote for Donald Trump by a margin of over 15%. However, these other states I typically do categorize as likely or lean states, but in this video I'm just going to categorize them as likely states. But with the exception of the state of Alaska. I think Alaska right now has gotten pretty close here in this state, and I think that the state of Alaska is going to be a lean state in the Electoral College, and I'm actually going to move South Carolina into this as well. I've decided right now, just because South Carolina, if according to the polling data, he leads by 7% flat right now here in the state of South Carolina, so according to that, it would be a likely margin at best, and if this were Biden's best case scenario, of course, Donald Trump probably underperform in South Carolina, making it a tilt state. So with Donald Trump's likely and solid states, as well as these 2 lean states, this puts Donald Trump at 123 electoral votes. These are the only lean, likely, and solid states that we're going to see for him in this video. So Donald Trump 123 electoral votes to Joe Biden with 183 still, and now I'm going to be filling in the likely Biden states. This, in my opinion, in Biden's best case, I think Nevada is going to become a likely Biden state. This is just because I think that he would be able to outperform the polls here and make it a likely state. Colorado and New Mexico as well, I think would be likely. I don't think these states are going to cross the 15% margin. I think they are going to vote very similarly from around 13 to 14% in favor of the former vice president. The state of Minnesota, I also believe, is going to be a likely state, as well as the state of Wisconsin and the state of Michigan. These 3 states, I think, are going to be much more solid for the Democratic Party compared to the margins that the Democrats experienced here just 4 years ago in 2016, when Hillary Clinton was only able to carry the state of Minnesota, breaking up the blue wall. Trump was able to break through this barrier for the first time in over 2 decades, sometimes, even 28 years. So that is really surprising to think about, that Donald Trump was able to flip so many states that are now going to become likely states for Joe Biden in 2020. The state of New Hampshire, I also think, will be able to be a likely state on this map. I think New Hampshire is definitely going to be much better for Biden than it was for Clinton. She carried the state by 0.3% in 2016. Definitely not a good performance considering that she is, after all, a Democrat. The 2nd District of Nebraska, I also think, is going to be likely, as well as the state of Virginia. I'm not going to put the 2nd District of Maine in this category, but the Maine at-large vote definitely is going to become a likely district in favor of Joe Biden. So with Joe Biden's likely and solid states filled in here, this gives Joe Biden 259 electoral votes to President Trump with 123, which means Joe Biden is now 11 electoral votes away from winning the 2020 presidential election. So first, I'm going to fill in the 2nd District of Nebraska. I think it's going to be a lean state. I forgot to fill it out just a couple moments earlier, but I think that even in Biden's best case scenario, the Nebraska at-large vote is still going to be likely for the president. Very rural area here. Only the Omaha area, which is the 2nd District, is more liberal in the state of Nebraska. So I'm now going to be filling in the final Trump state on this map, and this is the state of Iowa. I think Iowa, in Biden's best case scenario, the state of Iowa would be a tilt state for him. I honestly do not see Joe Biden carrying the state of Iowa. The state of Iowa has been pretty solid for the GOP since Mitt Romney flipped it in 2016, went to Trump by 9% Mitt Romney flipped it in 2012, went to Trump by 9% in 2016. I really do not see this state flipping in 2020. However, the state of Texas, honestly, I am going to put into the Biden column, putting him up at 297 electoral votes, crossing the 200 electoral vote mark. I think that the state of Texas will flip in Biden's best case scenario. Otherwise, his numbers really would not be able to go too high up. But my reasoning behind this is because, according to the polling data and the 2016 swing that we saw, from 2016 applied to the 2020 numbers, the state of Texas would go to Joe Biden. So that's the reason why I'm going to put it into the Biden column. It's a very close race here, but I think that if Trump were to really screw up here, I think Joe Biden definitely has a chance. He's only down around 1 point in the polls, and it's only because of 538's balancing. If we were to really just take the polls for their face value, then Biden would be in the lead. The state of Arizona, I'm going to give to Joe Biden as a lean state. I really don't see it being a likely state just because it is still a flip for the first time in over 2 decades. I'm going to be a little more conservative here with this classification. The state of Arizona is going to be likely for Joe Biden in Biden's best case scenario. The state of Pennsylvania is also going to be a lean state. I don't see it becoming a likely state just because Pennsylvania has definitely gotten much closer in recent months, and the state of Pennsylvania definitely is not pulling as well for Joe Biden as it was during his peak in the summer. The 2nd District of Maine is also going to be likely. I think he's also going to flip this and make the 2nd District a little bit more stronger for the Democrats here once again. A district that the Democrats have not lost since 1988, and a district that Clinton was the first to lose for a Democrat in over 30 years. The state of Ohio, I'm categorized as a tilt state for Joe Biden. I think Ohio would very narrowly go to Joe Biden, similar to Texas in Biden's best case scenario, as well as the state of North Carolina, I think would also be a tilt Biden state, and the state of Georgia as well. Now, my reasoning behind these 3 states, including Texas as well, is just because the polls here are so close. It's either plus Biden by 1 or 2 points at most, typically around 1%, or plus Trump by 1%. And these kind of numbers could definitely go back and forth. Iowa, honestly, I think that Trump was able to outperform the polls here by 6%, I believe. So I'm going to put the state of Iowa into the Trump column. But these states, not so much from 2016. They really did not see that much of a change. You can check out my video on this after this, just my videos on the 2016 swings in favor of either candidate apply to the 2020 polling numbers, and you'll see that these states really did not see too significant of a swing. Florida did see a swing in favor of Trump according to the polls, but I still think that the state of Florida would go to Joe Biden with a tilt margin. The reason why I categorize it as tilt is because Florida is always very close. Biden only leads here by 2% flat now, but I think that the state of Florida, no matter how good a candidate does, Florida is always very, very close at the end of the day. It's always called very late on election night. So state of Florida, I'm still going to be putting in to the tilt Biden column. So this is, in my opinion, the most reasonable, actually has a chance of occurring best case scenario for Joe Biden in the 2020 presidential election, giving Joe Biden 407 electoral votes, absolutely crushing Donald Trump with 131. This would be the strongest Democratic victory in the Electoral College since Lyndon B. Johnson in 1964. This would outperform Bill Clinton's 1992 and 1996 margins when he won 370 and 379 electoral votes, as well as Barack Obama's 369 electoral vote victory over John McCain in 2008. Barack Obama would be the first Democrat to win over 400 electoral votes in decades. So this is the best case scenario for Joe Biden. He would be elected the 46th president of the United States. Now, for Trump's best case scenario, this is the Trump best case scenario. First, I'm filling the solid Democratic states. I think that even in Trump's best case, these states are not going to go to Joe Biden anyways. I think that these states are still going, they're not going to go to Donald Trump or be likely states for Joe Biden. These states are just way too solid for the Democrats, and I really cannot see this actually occurring. So, for President Trump, I think that in his best case, many of the likely GOP states would become solid states. Montana, Idaho, Wyoming, Utah are all going to be solid. Montana, Utah, of course, becoming solid now. The state of North Dakota and South Dakota would become solid, as well as the Nebraska at large, 1st and 3rd district vote. And the 2nd district, I think, would be a tilt state for Donald Trump. I think I am putting that a little bit too early. I apologize for the background noise you guys probably have just heard there. And the state of Kansas, I'm going to put into the solid column, I guess. I mean, Kansas currently is a likely state, but I think that Kansas, considering how rural it is and how conservative of a history this state has, I think Kansas would be solid in Trump's best case scenario. The state of Oklahoma as well would be solid. Missouri, Arkansas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and South Carolina would sweep the South for Donald Trump. Well, I'm actually going to put South Carolina into the likely Trump column. It was not solid for him in 2016. Don't think it's going to be solid for him in 2020. I don't think that Donald Trump is going to be able to outperform his margins in many states, even in his best case scenario. However, it is still much better than the Biden victory map. The state of Tennessee, Kentucky, West Virginia, and Indiana would all be solid for the president. State of Alaska, I'm going to give to President Trump as a likely state. Again, it was not likely or not solid for President Trump by 0.6% in 2016. So now I'm going to give it to him as a likely state once again. This puts Trump at 126 to Biden with 182 electoral votes. Now I'm going to categorize the state of Maine. 1st district would be likely in his worst case. The at-large vote would be lean in Biden's worst case, Trump's best case scenario, and Trump would be able to retain the 2nd district of Maine with a tilt margin, I think. I think that even if Trump were to do very well here, I really don't see it being a lean state for him. The state of New Hampshire, I'm going to categorize right now as well. New Hampshire, I think, would be a tilt state just like it was in 2016. In Biden's nightmare scenario, I think that this is not too likely to occur, but I think that if Trump were to really do so well magically, if that were to magically just occur, I think that definitely New Hampshire would not be a lean state for Joe Biden or a likely state for Joe Biden anymore. State of Nevada. I honestly think that Donald Trump is not going to be able to flip this state. He was going to make a play for the state of Nevada, considering that he only lost this state by 2.5% in 2016, but I don't see that happening in 2020. I think that in Biden's worst case scenario, he wins it by 0.51% state of Nevada. That's going to go into the Biden column. The state of Colorado and New Mexico are both going to be lean states on this map if this were to really occur. So 2 lean states for Joe Biden out of the states of Colorado and New Mexico. The state of Virginia would also become a lean state. In 2016, Hillary Clinton's running mate was Tim Kaine, and she barely won this state. So I don't think Biden's gonna do that. I don't think Biden's gonna do worse, but still definitely not that much better in his worst case scenario, President Trump's best case. So the states of Colorado, New Mexico, Virginia are going to be lean Biden states. The state of Minnesota would be a tilt state. Once again, I don't think Trump is going to be able to flip this state, in my opinion. So I'm going to put that into the Biden column, as well as the state of Michigan. Michigan, honestly, I think is already in the bag right now for Joe Biden. But the state of Michigan, I think, is still going to go to him, even in his worst case scenario. He's doing pretty well here, has been doing pretty consistently well in the state of Michigan. So I'm going to retain this state for Joe Biden. But the state of Wisconsin and Pennsylvania, these other 2 states in the blue wall, or the former blue wall that Trump was able to break through in 2016, I think would become tilt states for Trump once again, and I think he would be able to carry these 2 states. The states of Iowa and Ohio, I'm actually going to categorize them differently. I think Iowa can be a likely state in his best case scenario, while the state of Ohio, definitely not. I think Ohio would still be a lean state in favor of the president in his best case scenario. However, 18 electoral votes, not bad for the president. The state of Arizona currently is, I think, would be a tilt Trump state, just because if he were to win this state, he would have a lot of catching up to do. Honestly, this map, I do not think is too likely, but I just want to take a look at what a Trump victory would honestly look like in my opinion. But I think that the Biden victory map is not as plausible either, but I don't think any of these two things will actually occur. But I think, surprises do always happen in every single election, so this is just my prediction for the, landslide Biden or Trump victories, but really not too much of a landslide for President Trump. The state of Texas, I am also going to give to President Trump with a lean margin. I think that if you were to be able to win by, win the election in his best case scenario, of course, I think that the state of Texas would be a lean state for the president. And then the state of North Carolina currently, I think, is also going to be a tilt state for President Trump, joining Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Arizona. And then the state of Georgia, I think, is going to be a lean state, just like it was in 2016, joining Ohio and Texas. And the final state on this map, the state of Florida, I think is going to be a tilt Trump state, putting him over 270 electoral votes. He would win the election with 290 electoral votes to Donald Trump or Joe Biden with 248 electoral votes. The only differences between this map and 2016 is that Donald Trump would be able to lose the state of Michigan. That would be the only flip in favor of the Democrats, compared to 2016. So this is Trump's best case scenario, Trump 290, Joe Biden 248, Biden's best case scenario, Biden 407, and Trump 131. So that is it for this video. Please consider leaving a like on this video if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. Leave your thoughts in the comments below along with video suggestions for videos you'd like to see from me in the future, and I will see you in the next one.